Welcome this morning. Thank you for joining us today. And I wanted to introduce Charlie Wagner, the Executive Council for AARP here in Arkansas, to take the podium for an announcement.
Thank you, Governor. Charlie Wagner again is my name, and I am an AARP Arkansas advocacy volunteer. Other volunteers in the advocacy arena are also standing up here with me, and we're delighted today to be able to attend with the governor this particular press conference. Many of you may not know, but AARP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization with a membership of people that are 50 years or more old. Our mission is a very simple one. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life for all of us as we age, and we try to do that in four main areas. That's healthcare security, financial security, personal fulfillment, and livable communities. Many of you may not know, however, that AARP is a trusted source of news and information. We happen to have the world's largest circulation magazine called AARP, the magazine itself. We do not support any political candidates or their campaigns, either through endorsement or with money, but we're very focused on policy. And that's why we're here today, and you'll hear a little bit more about our particular focus and support as we move through the program. So with that, I'm going to stop and introduce to you our Arkansas State Director for AARP, Mr. Herb Sanderson.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Governor, for being here. Thank you, Senator English, Senator Pierce, John Gray behind me, and Mark Lowry for being here today. As Charlie said, we're a nonpartisan organization, and we appreciate the bipartisan support that showed up here today. We've already stated that there's 93,000 people receiving care that we hope will continue to receive care through Arkansas Works that are age 45 to 64. That's over 30% of the population. A lot of these people are hard-working people. I remember when we first started working on this coverage issue, we had a teletown hall with our members from across Arkansas, had over 5,000 members participating. And a guy from South Arkansas said, you know, I've worked for the same employer my entire career. And this was back when the economy was in a downturn. He said, I just lost my job several months ago. I've expired my COBRA. What am I supposed to do now for insurance? And before there was a program like this, there was no answer to this question. I talked to a 60-year-old woman, and the subject of cancer came up. And she said, well, you know, I don't get mammograms. And I said, well, why don't you do that? And she said, you know, I've worked for a small employer, raised 5 kids. I don't have health insurance. What good would it do to get a diagnosis? And I can't tell you how many, primarily women, that I've talked to that have told me I had great insurance through my husband's retirement, but when he died, the insurance went away. And when you get to be up in your 50s, you'll have conditions that will make writing insurance extremely expensive. So this program is vital for our members. We contacted a fraction of our members through a mailer, asking them if they would show support for improving our healthcare system in Arkansas and supporting Arkansas Works. And there's a sample of 6,500 postcards we got back that are on record. We're going to be notifying the legislators that these people, their senator and representative, that they are in support. Arkansas AARP is going to be supporting Arkansas Works, and we congratulate Governor Hutchinson for his leadership, and we definitely want to see this bill pass. Thank you.
Well, let me say thank you, Herb. And what is good about it, as we start a special session, this puts a human face. It puts real-life examples of what we're facing in the state of Arkansas and the decision the legislature has to make. And I want to express appreciation to our legislators that are joining us here, just one, to show support for the AARP and your leadership, but also to recognize that this is an important decision that the legislature must address. And so your support for Arkansas Works is a great kickoff as we look at having a special session in the coming days. So thank you, Herb.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to make some separate comments here that might be of interest, Mr. Leader. And again, thank you for the support of Arkansas Works, and that leads me to where we are as we look to entering a special session of the legislature tomorrow. And as you know, the Speaker of the House and the Senate Pro Tem, Speaker Gillum and Senator Dismang, wrote a letter yesterday that was a very thoughtful letter, and simply said that there is substantial support for Arkansas Works as we go into the special session. And they also made the comment that they felt like the legislature needed more time to evaluate a very complex issue, and that is the savings legislation, the Arkansas Medicaid Reform Act, also known as the Managed Care Bill. That while there is support for that, there's a lot of questions. The legislature needs more time to absorb that. As governor, I've learned a couple things. One is that you need to work with the legislature. And the second thing is that you need to listen. And I thought that was wise counsel, and I very much appreciate Speaker Gillum and Senator Dismang taking the pulse of the legislature and raising that issue with me. And so as a result of the concerns that they expressed and the desire to limit the call to the Arkansas Works legislation, today I am signing, and I have signed, the proclamation that calls the General Assembly back into session tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the purpose of addressing the Arkansas Works legislation that will be filed at that time. That will be the only piece of legislation. In other words, the managed care legislation will not be on the call as recommended by Speaker Gillum and Senator Dismang. What are the reasons for that? First of all, as they acknowledged, this is the most comprehensive reform piece of legislation in terms of Medicaid that we've seen in decades and decades. It is comprehensive. There's a lot of money at stake. There's people interested in this, and it's complicated, and the legislature wants time to absorb it. And so that's important to give them that time. It is dramatic reform legislation that is historic in proportion. And you had a task force, a legislative task force, that evaluated the different Medicaid reform proposals, how to create savings. They spent a year on this. And even within the legislative task force, you did not see a final conclusion. They came out and recommended Arkansas Works with a 10-2 vote, but it was more divided on how to create the savings that is needed in terms of the overall traditional Medicaid budget. And so the challenge was significant for the other members of the General Assembly to get a grasp on this complicated topic within a short amount of time. More time was needed. The good news to me about the debate that has been created is that everyone across the board is talking about how to create more savings within the traditional Medicaid budget. And we have driven that message so that we've created $250 million in savings with our long-term care industry over 5 years. We have moved, and soon an RFP will go out for dental managed care to create savings, and that is with a consensus with the industry. We have looked at other savings measures that is currently on the table. And so while we're holding off on the legislation, the reform effort will continue. The effort for savings will continue within DHS. We'll continue to look at the behavioral health populations and to produce rules that will create more savings within that targeted population. And so that effort for savings will continue. One of the primary motivations for the reform effort, one was savings that's needed. It's the right thing to do for taxpayers. But secondly, there was a path in order to reduce the disability waiver waiting list, as I've mentioned before. And I hope that as the legislature considers this over the next month and tries to get their arms around this and the debate continues, that there will be a recognition that we had a very good path forward as a state for reducing that most vulnerable population, the ones we have such a high responsibility for, that is in need of home care or community care and different levels of care, that we're able to provide that as a state. And we had a very good, solid funding mechanism for that I hope will be a focal point of the discussion over the next month. And so we will continue to look for additional means to create savings within Medicaid. We're going to move forward, as I said, with rules to reform behavioral health program. And we look forward to the continued discussion with the legislature. I will continue to listen. Over the last couple weeks, I've heard from a lot of different proposals. We have made adjustments to the legislation. We have improved it. We've accepted some proposals. We've had compromises on the table. Those conversations will continue, and they are very, very helpful to the debate. And so I hope that in the near future we'll be able to reach a common framework so that we can move forward with substantial savings in the overall Medicaid budget and continue the efforts that we are doing internally. And I look forward to working with the legislature to accomplish that goal. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over for questions.
Do you have a timeline of when you'd like to try again with managed care proposals? Is it something you're looking at maybe even trying during fiscal session, or do you think that discussion needs to hold off until next year?
You know, I think one of the things that I've learned is that everybody doesn't go at the same pace I go at. And so sometimes I set an agenda based upon how fast I want to go. And I think we need to sit back and say, let's not set a time frame. Let's let the discussion continue. I hope that you know, we're going to have our special session, Arkansas Works. I expect it to pass, and then we'll move into the budget session. And in the budget session, there's going to be a lot of time working with the legislators. We're here in Little Rock. There'll be a lot of caucus meetings. There's going to be a lot of groups that will express themselves. And I hope during that time that we can refine the legislation, bring everybody together, and find a common path forward. But I wouldn't set any time frame.
Governor, can you not make some of the changes to managed care that you want to through executive action? Do you have to have legislation to do some of the program changes that you want to make?
Sure. For example, the dental managed care, there's not any legislation that is authorized or said what we can or cannot do, but we're moving forward with that. So there's a recognition that within DHS, we have the responsibility to manage our overall Medicaid budget consistent with federal rules. So we have authority, but as you know, it's important to have legislative review, and any contract that's entered into, they ultimately are able to review. And so we want to work and continue to work with the legislature. But what I've emphasized is that we do have a responsibility to manage the Medicaid budget in a prudent way to create savings. And my pledge from the very beginning was I would support the Medicaid expansion program in Arkansas with the reform that's outlined in Arkansas Works, and secondly, with being able to create savings so we don't jeopardize general revenue. And so I still have that commitment. We've already accomplished a substantial amount of savings. we will continue down that path to create those savings.
If consensus can't be reached between some of these competing legislative thoughts, will you keep that on the table as an option to just move by executive action?
I will continue to create savings and work toward that goal and work with the legislature.
How can you continue to support Arkansas Works with no guarantees that the savings will be achieved?
We have a substantial amount of savings already on the table, and we can achieve many of those savings internally within DHS, and I'm confident that the legislature is committed to the same level of savings. The debate has been as to whether we need $1 billion in savings or $1.4 billion in savings. So with the debate within that range, I'm comfortable that we are going to be able to reach a consensus on that and accomplish the savings that's needed.
Where do things
How
stand
long
at this?
until you have to really put pen to paper and figure out how you're going to get those savings? How long can you negotiate before you have to get those savings in place?
Well, the key thing in terms of timing is to have the legislation passed so that we can pursue the waivers that I've been in regular discussion with Secretary Burwell, that we'll have the waivers from the federal government to accomplish Arkansas Works. That's the critical time frame for this session. Once that is accomplished, then we can pursue the waivers. Simultaneously, we can continue the discussion on the savings and our efforts toward accomplishing those savings. So we have the time once we accomplish the most urgent issue, which is the legislation that would support Arkansas Works.
Where do things stand at this point in terms of getting this, not just the simple majority for Arkansas Works, but the three-fourths that will be needed for the appropriation?
Take it a step at a time. I'm comfortable with where we are in the special session with the authorizing language and the vote for Arkansas Works. It'll be a totally different evaluation equation in the appropriation session. You look at things differently. Now we're debating policy and what's the right direction for the state. Then you're appropriating money to accomplish that policy, and historically there's been a different standard to review that, and it's the policy decision has garnered broad support. So I'm comfortable that we'll be able to continue that emphasis as we go into the appropriation session, but I want to focus on getting through the special session first and getting the majority that's needed for Arkansas Works.
Are you worried that you'll lose support for Arkansas Works without consensus on the savings plan?
No, because there is consensus on savings. And secondly, I've talked to enough legislators that I'm comfortable that the support remains for that. And so I am confident that this actually narrows the focus. We were so challenged with the managed care debate and hearing from all the groups on that and trying to make sure we make the right decision, that this brings us back and say, let's get down to fundamentals. Let's get the Arkansas Works legislation passed. And so it's a much more narrow focus in the session. And so I think it's actually a positive factor in that sense.
What do you, in your estimation, what's the tripping point? Where's the block between the different factions on managed care reform, diamond care? What do you see as the obstacle to overcome?
Well, there's two different views. And ultimately, I have to manage through my director of DHS, Cindy Gillespie. I have to manage the Medicaid program. And if you look at the ASO model, the Administrative Services model, I could not support that because the risk is on the state, it creates less savings, and we've never done it before. And so you're asking DHS, that's got their plate full on so many different issues, to manage something that really hasn't been tried and a model not established for it across the country. And so that's a risk I don't want to take. The risk for the targeted populations was a managed care proposal. They call it the hybrid proposal. And that's a risk that is minimal for the state, that is a proven capability across the country. That is a difference of view there. And we've offered different models and different ways to compromise, but at some point I have to, as governor, make a judgment as to what is the best way to manage a very expensive program and a very complicated program, and to rely upon the capability of DHS to carry that out. I've made that judgment, and that's why I've advocated that to my legislative colleagues and asked for their trust for me as governor. And they said we need more time, and I'm yielding to that expression that we need more time, but that's the difference, and that's something we'll continue to try to find a common ground on and a common solution.
Is there any update regarding your highway program, in particular your review of the ArcVest program?
Wow, did I ever talk about that? And I say that jokingly because I've been so focused on this first special session, and I recognize obviously the importance of the highway session and the highway plan that I've advocated, but we've been focused on this initiative, and so that will come back to play as we get ready for that. But it's all contingent upon having a successful special session on Arkansas Works. It's contingent upon having a successful budget session, and then we'll have plenty of time to resolve the issues and be prepared for the second special session.
Arkansas Works will be assigned to the Senate Public Health Committee tomorrow, as it usually is.
That, I've learned, is a legislative decision. They have not asked me who I think it should be assigned to. Anyway, that decision will be made in the normal course of a legislative session. Thank you all very much.